The music sounds just as sweet as ESPN presents for the 10th straight year, the NFL Draft. The decade began with some big hits. The 49ers picked big hitter Ronnie Lott, number 1 in 1981. And though he's not old time, he can certainly rock and roll. Everyone looks for a top gun to lead the way. The Colts may have picked John Elway first in 1983, but Elway took his aerial show to Denver, throwing passes with laser accuracy. Midway through the decade, teams look for some nasty boys. Bruce Smith came out of Virginia Tech in 1985 and helped rebuild the Bills' defense into a snarling bunch. As the 80s come to a close and we look forward to the 90s, everyone is wild about Troy Aikman from UCLA. The 27 teams can't do a thing about it. The Cowboys have already corralled him in Big D. Heisman Trophy winner Barry Sanders is short in size but tall in stature. His awesome ability will make one team's offense instantly dynamic. Strike up the band and make your own selections. ESPN presents the 1989 NFL Draft. You are looking live at the Marriott Marquis Ballroom, just a couple of ticks past noon Eastern Time here in New York City as the 1989 NFL Draft is about to begin. Hello once again, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, and to use another song from Jerry Lee Lewis, there's a whole lot of shaking going on because before the draft has even begun, we've got some big trades in the works. It seems as if the San Diego Chargers have been talking to just about everybody that moves. One of the teams that's moving, the Chicago Bears, and it's a trade that might involve Jim McMahon, veteran quarterback of the Bears, going to the Chargers for a #1 pick. It hasn't happened yet, but it may in just a couple moments out at Lake Forest, Illinois at Bears headquarters, which is where our good friend Pete Axthelm is. Good morning, Ax.
Good morning, Chris. With my incredible instinct for news and sheer luck, I do happen to be sitting on top of the big story of the draft. It looks like McMahon's going to San Diego for 2 top draft choices, which right now, Mike Ditka, Bill Tobin, the personnel director, and owner Mike McCaskey are in a meeting. They have not finalized it yet. As soon as they do, they'll be joining me. In the meantime, an interesting thing is San Diego, I learned yesterday, was in the midst of a 3-way deal with Atlanta and the Redskins, which would have left a lot of draft choices exchanged in complicated fashion, but would have left Gerald Riggs in Washington. Where does that leave Bobby Beathard? Well, one more mystery of draft day. Let's go to Andrea Kramer. She's with McMahon's agent, Steve Zucker.
Thanks, Pete. We are here at the home of Steve Zucker in suburban Chicago. Is to be a day to celebrate draft picks to come, but one of Steve's greatest prizes has been Jim McMahon, and it looks as though, Steve, he may be heading out of Chicago. What do you hear? Can we substantiate any sort of rumors?
No, the rumors have been going on for some time. They seem to be really heating up today, though, and there's always a possibility. If Jim were to go anywhere, San Diego is the place he'd like to go.
What has transpired up to now? Have you talked to anybody? Has Jim talked to anybody?
No, we have not, and it's all, we've been hearing the rumors all morning long, and we're just going to respond to them as things break, but I guess that's up to the Bears in San Diego as to what they work out.
Well, we will be with Steve Zucker and later Jim McMahon here, and now let's head back to New York.
All right, Andrea and Pete, thank you very much. And so that's the backdrop as the draft is about to begin. It is an end for the career of Commissioner Pete Rozelle. This is his 30th draft that he will be presiding over, and it could be one of the most intriguing. We have a cast of thousands. We'll be live in more than half dozen places. We'll detail all those to you. And now here is the commissioner to start the festivities, if you will.
54th Annual National Football League Selection Meeting is now in session. First choice, first round, Dallas Cowboys.
Now I can't imagine that this is going to be more than about a 3-minute call. I mean, the phone companies aren't going to make a lot on this one because the Cowboys made it official 2 days ago. Here's
Cowboys select Troy Aikman, quarterback, UCLA. Next up, the Green Bay Packers.
And so it is now officially official, if you will. Troy Aikman is a member of the Dallas Cowboys, though he was signed and sealed, delivered a couple days ago. Transferred from Oklahoma to UCLA, first-team All-American last year, completing 64% of his passes, 23 touchdown passes a year ago, 209 completions in 2 years with UCLA, threw for almost 5,300 yards, 41 touched the professional ranks, and becomes a member of the Dallas Cowboys. With me here at there is Troy Aikman, is with the commissioner, Pete Rozelle, right now, and holding up the Cowboys jersey, which they're ready for him. I think you know these fellas, Tom Jackson and Joe Theismann. Joe, I'm going to start with you because you're the QB. You've said publicly you don't think Dallas should have made this move. Have you changed your stance?
No, I haven't. I think that Dallas could have made a better move trading this draft choice. I think they filled a need with Troy Aikman. And since the rule has been passed to only allow 80 players by June 1st, you have to take guys in a situation where they're going to have the ability to help your football team today, not in the future. This kid, being signed as early as he has, will have a chance to go through camp, and I think Troy Aikman will be the starting quarterback. I still believe they could have gotten more help if they'd have traded this pick, but it's good for the Cowboys.
Tommy, the Cowboys, what do you think? I mean, they need someone to throw it.
Well, you have to have a good quarterback. Somewhere in your system, if you want to win championships, you're going to have a good quarterback. I think the thing I would like to see this kid do is have a chance to sit on the bench and learn. Coming from Oklahoma, he really has only been a player 2 years at the major college level. I think he will need to sit on that bench for a while and get some experience before they throw him in under fire.
A couple of notes on Troy Aikman. Last year, of course, no quarterbacks went in the first round. He's only the 6th quarterback to ever be the first overall selection in the draft. A couple years ago, we had Vinny Testaverde in '87, John Elway, of course, by the Colts in '83, Steve Bartkowski by Atlanta in '75, Jim Plunkett in '71 with New England, and Terry Bradshaw in 1970 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going in the draft, meaning since they started the common draft in 1967. So a quarterback number one hasn't happened all that much. Another interesting note, only 6 quarterbacks picked in the first round since the start of the common draft in '67 have ever won a Super Bowl ring. Greasy, Bradshaw, Plunkett, Sims, Doug Williams, and Jim McMahon, who oddly enough we were talking about today. So Troy, it doesn't guarantee the Cowboys a Super Bowl. It doesn't guarantee success, but the Cowboys figure that they might as well go for him because he's the best quarterback in a lot of people's eyes. Certainly ranks even with Vinny. And we'll get into a little bit more with that with Mel Kiper on how he ranks. But the suspense is over in Irving, Texas for a couple days. Still, our Chris Myers is down there now with a couple of fellas who have studied Troy Aikman pretty closely. Chris?
All right, thanks very much, Chris. It is D-Day in Big D, and the Cowboys in selecting Troy Aikman, only the second time that they have ever used their number one choice for a quarterback. The first time was way back in 1965 when they selected Craig Morton out of California, and Ed Too Tall Jones was the last time that the Cowboys had a first pick overall in the draft in 1974. They chose him, and of course, he's still hanging around on the roster. But we're talking about Troy Aikman and making it official today, and there really was never any doubt, Coach Jimmy Johnson with us, that you were going to make him your choice.
Well, there was no question in our mind for the simple reason, we've known Troy for a long, long time. He's a class individual. I think he's a very talented individual, and we looked at the long range. We looked at the future of the Dallas Cowboys and what player was going to have the greatest impact for a long time, and we really feel like that this year, Troy Aikman, without question in our mind, was the player that we needed and the player that could have such a positive influence on our club.
Now, there was talk of trade. San Diego, Kansas City interested. New England, we hear, offered their top 3 selections this year and the number 1 pick in 1990. You did listen to those trade offers. That has to help a little bit.
Well, we did listen, but that's all we did. We felt like that it would be to our benefit to find out what some of the clubs were willing to give up, but really we didn't waver. We knew that Troy was our guy, and thanks to our owner, Jerry Jones, who I think's done a fantastic job with the organization, he was able to not only draft him number 1, but he was able to go out and sign him.
The Cowboys' new owner and your good friend is with us, and kind of like striking it rich in the oil fields, huh? Getting Aikman right off the bat.
Well, Tom, we're thrilled to have him on our club. Our fans deserve the Troy Aikmans if we can get them and have a chance to do it, and we knew we wanted him bad. The only one that wanted it worse than we did was Troy. He wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy as well. And when two people want each other that bad, then you can get together real quick. And we're going to have him out here practicing just as quick as we can.
How soon, how quickly would you expect him to start for this football season?
Well, that's he's got competition, and a lot of competition, and he's going to have to make our club. And Coach Johnson will, I'm sure, be able to evaluate that as we go. But he's the quality of player that our fans are going to see for many, many years to come.
Okay, thank you very much, Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Troy Aikman, they made it official. Steve Pallur, by the way, is still unsigned, the Cowboys starting quarterback from last year. Let's go to New York now and Bob Lee.
Thanks, Chris, and momentarily the Green Bay Packers will make it official.
First round, tackle Tony Mandarich, Michigan State. Next up, Detroit
Lions. There was no doubt about that one, certainly. Now, we have just been to Irving, Texas, and heard Jerry Jones, the man who's going to be paying Troy Aikman $11.5 million over the next 6 years, talk about his selection of Troy Aikman. Now, Tony Mandarich, the devotee of Guns N' Roses, the 300-and-some-odd-pound offensive tackle, a man the likes of whom we have never seen. Tony Mandarich is the draftee. This guy, once in a lifetime.
He's a great player, Bob. When you watch him, he just dominates play after play. Great physical ability, but he utilizes those skills on every down, and that's rare to see that in the college football players. Look how he just drive these guys off the ball. Just a great football player. Never quits. He'll be down the field 20, 25 yards on occasion. You can see here in pass block and pass protection, very rarely allows any penetration by the defensive lineman. Just a great bookend left tackle who will really help the Green Bay Packers.
4.6 speed at over 300 pounds, and the likes of which we have never seen. We are waiting on Detroit's pick. Will it be Barry Sanders? Probably should be. Tony Mandarich, the selection. Let's get to the podium.
Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions select Barry Sanders, running back of Oklahoma State. Next up, Kansas City Chiefs.
No doubt about that one. There was a little bit of doubt. The best Sanders available. Okay, Barry Sanders goes. We'll have time to go back and think about Aikman and Mandarich and what he is worth. But right now, a true junior, 5'8". Is he big enough to get the job done in the silver stretch offense?
Well, he's not small, Bob. He's just short. You watch him, he's got great quickness, tremendous elusiveness as a runner, great instincts and vision. A lot different than Worley, the other top back in this draft. Worley has more power and more raw speed, but Barry is much more instinctive and much quicker. And if you watch him, he evades tacklers and makes people miss. He's going to be a 1,500-yard rusher in the NFL next season, and he has a great future, and he will generate excitement with the Detroit Lion organization, which is something they desperately need right now.
He is in this draft, of course, as a true junior. Because the fact Oklahoma State is on probation, there has not been a legal challenge to the prohibitions against underclassmen really coming into the draft. The league has really yet to face this. Let's get back to Aikman for just a second. Joe says it was a reach or a mistake by the Cowboys. You, as we were talking and kicking around the rumored McMahon deal to San Diego, are of the opinion you want to develop a quarterback. You don't necessarily have to win now. You like the Aikman selection.
You have to be patient, Bob, and I think the Dallas Cowboys are in a position right now where they can develop Troy Aikman. He's not going to be the savior in Dallas. Steve Pallur is going to open the season as their #1 quarterback, and I think down the road in 2-3 years, maybe 4 years, Troy Aikman will have the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Jimmy Johnson's a great coach. I think the organization's going to do everything in their power to develop a winner, and if you look at Dallas, if they would have been picking 2, 3, 4, 10, they would have been figuring out ways to move up to get Troy Aikman. They lucked out on the 16th week of the season when Green Bay goes into Phoenix and pulls an upset. Right. So they're very fortunate to get the first pick. All they had to do was sign Troy Aikman, and he's theirs. They did it, and I think it's a great move. So I think the Dallas Cowboys are well on their way to getting back to the top of the NFC East.
Next up, Kansas City. They have approximately 13 minutes to make their selection. Teams in the first round have 15 minutes per pick. Second round, it's 10 minutes per pick, and from there on, it's 5 minutes per selection. It'll be Carl Peterson's first selection as president of the Kansas City Chiefs. They need linebacker help. Is this where we see Derrick Thomas go?
It should be. They desperately need an outside linebacker, and Derrick Thomas is without question the best outside linebacker in this draft. Broderick Thomas, by the way, is up to 267 pounds. So people are now looking at Broderick as a down end in certain situations, like Minnesota has used Chris Dolman, who when he came out of Pitt was a linebacker and then moved to the defensive line.
Broderick Thomas out there. Derrick Thomas, take the best Thomas available. And Chris, of course, minutes in, the best athlete available is what every team covets.
The over-under on that line was about 12.52, Bob, the best athlete available. It's the best Thomas and the best Sanders available, because you could have 2 Sanders two Thomases go within the first 6 picks, and we'll have to get our research staff on that one to find out when two names were so popular, so high on the draft. Let's go back to the Packers with Tony Mandrich. They drafted in the first round offensive lineman at 85, Ken Rutgers, USC, Ron Hallstrom, 82, Iowa, but there's nobody like him. And Tommy, they're comparing Mandrich. The only one they're even comparing him to is your friend Anthony Munoz of the Bengals. And if that's the only one they're comparing it to, you can understand how Lorenzo White made all those yards up at Michigan State. He probably felt his line at Houston last year in the Oilers wasn't as good as his line was in college.
Well, Munoz is the toughest player that I played ever against on the offensive line. Maybe John Hanna had that kind of exceptional talent, that aggressiveness. But as we have said before, we have not seen anything like Mandrich. This guy is 305 pounds and runs just about the same speed that I ran when I came out of college. So this guy can play football.
And, Joe, what is it to know that you got a guy in front of you like that? Not directly in front, but he's almost directly in front of you from the tackle spot.
Close enough to be in front of you. See, he's right over here. And if you're a right-handed quarterback, that's your blind side. And there's one place that you want somebody you know that's as big as a house. Now, I worked the Gator Bowl this year. Mike Patrick and I had a chance to do that. Michigan State played Georgia in that game. Tony Mandrich has the largest arms that I have seen since Hulk Hogan. Now, Hogan's got those 16-inch pythons. Mandrich is real close, but a real important factor for Tony Mandrich is he comes out of college healthy. A lot of offensive linemen come out with bad knees or nicks or ankles or something. This kid's coming out very big, very healthy, and I think he's going to help Green Bay right away. No question.
Very good also.
Very good, too.
Barry Sanders, the Heisman Trophy winner, the true junior that came out, and he goes to the Detroit Lions. For a while, they were wondering whether Mouse Davis was, I believe, whether he fit exactly into their new offense of the run and shoot as the Lions try to restore the roar. But I think if you draft Barry Sanders, you'll figure out an offense to fit him in, won't you, Tom?
I think that he'll fit basically in any offense. I think the thing that's interesting is people talk about his lack of height. I'll tell you something. I played with a guy named Howard Stevens at the University of Louisville, about 5'2". They don't open the holes this way. They open the holes this way.
Barry Sanders, so he will go to Detroit. We assume it's Derrick Thomas to go to Kansas City. We assume it's Deion Sanders that will go to Atlanta. Those are pretty much your first 5 picks, and you can almost write them down. The fun begins when we get to number 6, Tampa Bay, because now there's some the trade involving McMahon with San Diego's number 8 pick. Atlanta may also be involved with that. You heard Axe say that with Washington. That trade may still be brewing as well, that Atlanta may get the number 8 pick in San Diego involving Humphreys and Riggs. So they weren't kidding when they said that the McMahon deal was not a done deal yet. We shall wait and see. But in the meantime, here comes the card from the Kansas City Chiefs, who this year may be taking the step to no longer be known as the Chefs. Checking all the spelling, I'm sure. And here's the commissioner.
The Kansas City Chiefs, first-round selection. Derrick Thomas, linebacker, Alabama. Next up, Atlanta Falcons.
And the Kansas City Chiefs, an interesting note on Derrick Thomas is that at Alabama, Derrick Thomas had sack numbers way superior to Cornelius Bennett. We're not trying to say he's better than Cornelius, but already you know that Derrick Thomas is a special sort of football player. He broke his own school record with 88 tackles this last year. He had 45 career sacks, whereas Cornelius only had 15. And the young man from South Miami, Florida, will fit in very nicely with the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that's making a move, Joe.
Well, you know, the thing about him is this is the first time Carl Peterson has a chance to draft that high. So I think he's made a real good selection. They've got the best secondary in the NFL. Now they're moving down to making some of the best linebacker choices.
So Derrick Thomas is the 4th pick. Here's Atlanta. Number 5.
Falcons, Atlanta Falcons, first-round choice. Deionsanders, cornerback, Florida State. Next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And so Kenny Herrock, the player personnel director of Atlanta, he was awfully quick on that pick. Atlanta has really never had a guy like this, a guy that can sit people in the seats. And you mentioned it at Dallas, Joe. Atlanta needs to sit people in the seats. And Deion Sanders, prime time, Neon Deion, he's being ranked as the best pure corner to come out of the draft since Michael Haynes in 1976. So already that tells you how good he is.
I mean, it'll light up that stadium down here, I'll tell you now.
Peachtree Street, they don't need any lights on Peachtree Street anymore. And here comes Tampa's pick, number 6, and maybe this will be Broderick Perkins. We shall see. We know that Ray Perkins wasn't as sold on Broderick Perkins as some of his scouts are. But in the last day or so, we believe that they have moved towards Broderick Thomas. What did I say? Broderick Perkins? No, that's a baseball player who used to play for the San Diego Padres. Broderick Thomas, we assume.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, first-round selection. Broderick Thomas, linebacker, Nebraska. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers.
They should be this easy every year, but I think the easiness stops right now. So Tampa Bay is going with Broderick Thomas, the guy who can play both linebacker, but probably will be used from the pass-rushing defensive end position. Broderick Thomas, outside linebacker, Nebraska, weighs over 250 pounds. His first step just gets him off the line of scrimmage and into the backfield almost immediately. He's almost impossible to handle one-on-one. 98 tackles, 53 solo tackles last year. Tommy, the guy is huge.
Highly aggressive, huge player who can maybe be a swing player, outside linebacker, inside linebacker, might be a down defensive lineman. This guy can do a lot of things for a ball club, and I think that his aggressiveness is something that's going to add to the Tampa Bay Buccaneer attack.
Well, the Buccaneers, Joe, have tried to be getting some players together. It hasn't shown much in the win and loss column. Last year, they made a good #1 draft pick with Paul Gruber, offensive line. This year, you like this pick?
I think I like this pick. I think the thing about Broderick Thomas is you got Broderick Thomas almost cast in the same mold of Freddie Joe Nunn, who's with the Phoenix Cardinals now. He's tried to play outside linebacker. He's a little too big to try and cover backs out of the backfield. This is the kind of guy who's going to wind up going down, I'm sure, most of the time in Tampa Bay's defense, and they need that. A lot of teams need the outside rushers, but this one's going to help Tampa Bay make another step. Now, if they can teach Vinny how to throw to the guys with his shirts on, that would make it another step that would help him a lot, too.
They're working very hard on that show.
Are.
We have that just in from one of our sources. If you've watched the 10 drafts that we've done here on ESPN, I think it's safe to say, and Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong over there, we've never had 6 first-round picks go in about 20 or 21 minutes. Expect the breaks to go on pretty soon as Pittsburgh is thinking between perhaps Worley and Ryson, and then we'll find out if San Diego makes the trade. Pittsburgh is next. San Diego follows. We'll be back. ESPN's coverage of the 1989 NFL Draft is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. By Bud Light, everything else is just alike. And by Levi's Dockers. If you're not wearing Dockers, you're just wearing pants.
ESPN's coverage of the National Football League Draft continues for the 10th consecutive year with the Marriott Marquis in New York City. Good afternoon. I'm Bob Lee. We're waiting on Pittsburgh now, the 7th selection in the first round. They've got approximately 10 minutes. We have had a machine gun start to this first round. Troy Aikman, Tony Mandarich, Barry Sanders, Derrick Thomas, Deion Sanders, and Broderick Thomas taking quickly. We still, of course, have that rumor percolating about a possible trade sending Jim McMahon to San Diego. We wait to see what happens with that. We will have a chance to analyze what has been a scattershot open. But now, let's check in Las Vegas with Al Bernstein, standing by with 2 of the men who have been among the top 6 selected. Good morning, Al.
Well, lots of excitement. Hi, Bob. How are you? Well, it was appropriate. The Kansas City Chiefs needed some linebacking help. They called the right place, the Aladdin Hotel here in Las Vegas, for Derrick Thomas. And it's appropriate because he won the Butkus Award for Best Linebacker of the Year. Let's bring Derrick in if we can. And Derrick, not really a surprise to you. You probably expected to go right there.
Well, I had hoped to go right there, and I heard some rumors that they might take Barry-Sanders this morning, and I got kind of shaky, but I was all right once I got in here.
How are you going to fit in with the Kansas City Chiefs? A new regime, a new coach, a new general manager, a new beginning for everybody.
Well, I think I fit in very well because they run a scheme similar to the one that I ran in college, and I think I can execute and do real well soon.
Well, you did well in college, 27 sacks. You got a few more with the Chiefs.
Well, I hope to exceed 27, but if I don't, I think I'll be happy with the number I come up with.
All right, I'm sure they'll be happy with you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Derrick Thomas, the first of the linebackers to go in this draft. Now let's send things over to Andrea Kramer in Winnetka, Illinois.
We are in the home of Steve Zucker in Winnetka, Illinois. A very happy Deion Sanders. The most important thing has already been decided, what number he's going to wear. What number is that, Deion?
21. We had to get a 2 in there somewhere, so I think we chose unanimous decision. We wanted 21.
You just said this is your mom sitting next to you. You said she's my very rich mom. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No more sales. No more nothing now. We get that big house we always been wanting. We get everything we want now.
It looks like you're wearing your signing bonus here. I mean, you know, plus we have we can see the nice primetime logo already, or what?
Yeah, we got sweatsuits started, jackets started, everything. We got it going on here. Everybody got on jewelry. Even the baby got a little something. We ready now.
Even the baby has jewelry. Your feelings about going to Atlanta, no doubt it was your first preference.
Definitely. Atlanta or Tampa Bay. And Atlanta chose me, and I'm very pleased with that decision. I can't wait to get to town with Coach Campbell and get with them fans down there and pack them in there.
When Detroit took the other Sanders, I saw a big grin come across your face.
Man, I was so happy. But I was kind of scared. I thought Detroit was going to take me. I would have asked for so much money that I had to put me on layaway.
On layaway, huh? No baseball's leverage there, huh?
No.
What did Marion Campbell, you just got off the phone with him, what did he say to you on the phone, aside just from welcome to Atlanta?
Welcome to Atlanta. He was, he laid it low for the last 3 days, and he knew deep down inside it would work out, and he can't wait till I can get there, and he want Deion and Primetime to get on that plane.
Well, you just said, tell Marion Primetime's coming to Atlanta, huh?
I want everybody at the airport. I want everybody in Atlanta there. I want a special greeting when I get there.
All right. We'll be back with Deion a little bit later. Let's now go back to Las Vegas.
Well, thank you, Andrea. We are here with Broderick Thomas, the gentleman who was selected by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the second linebacker to be selected in this draft. And Broderick, you were probably expecting to go right in this area. Are you surprised it was maybe a pick earlier than you thought?
No, I don't think it was a pick early. I think it was right on time. I've been talking to Coach Perkins, and a lot of other people have been very interested, and things went down just as we expected. And I'm very happy to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer right now.
Well, they can use you, to be sure, a lot of inexperience in the linebacking core, but some talk about you maybe being a down end of some sort. What do you think of that talk?
Well, myself, Coach Perkins, and Coach Kynes, we already have talked over these things. I'll be on time. As soon as I get there, I'll be playing outside linebacker.
Okay, well, congratulations on your pick.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Broderick Thomas, he says he's going to be a linebacker. Let's go back to Bob Lee.
And he's had the training. Thanks, El. Deion worried that if Detroit had taken him, he'd make so much money, he'd have to put it on layaway. And when Deion went to Yankee camp, of course, he's playing Double-A minor league baseball. He wanted a single digit at Yankee camp. Those are tough to come by, but they soon educated him. He ended up with 44 in Fort Lauderdale this year. We're waiting on the Steelers. They've got about 5.5 minutes to go, and it's an important draft. Chuck Noll with basically a new coaching staff. He remains the head coach. This is a team that through the 70s, through the dynasty, drafted 18 Pro Bowl players. Through the 1980s, as we put the cap on this decade, have drafted only 3 Pro Bowl players. They have some rather definite needs. This, as we understand it, is their only first-round selection. The Mike Merriweather deal, Mel, apparently has not gone down. There had been talk, of course, that Merriweather, if the signing could be accomplished with the Vikings, that they would pick up another first round. Apparently the holdup there is a $400,000 signing bonus versus a $400,000 interest-free loan. Steelers, this pressure. They've got to select wisely. They took Aaron Jones, Jermani Dawson the first 2 rounds last year, and it worked
What they
out.
really need, they have to decide right now if they want Risen or Grossman or a guy like Worley. I don't know why it's taken them so long. I think Tim Worley would make the most sense here. Last year they missed out by 1 pick on John Stevens, who would have been a great addition. Warren Williams is a good number 2 back. He's not a starter. They need somebody to team with Merrill Hodge, and I think Worley's the man. Risen would make some sense because Brister needs weapons, but I don't know why it's taken so long. I think if I were the Steelers, I would jump at Tim Worley at this spot.
Let's again recap Mike Merriweather, the holdout linebacker from last year. There had been a conditional trade worked yesterday. This would be the deal, and apparently, and the deadline for this deal was midnight, actually the beginning of the draft today, approximately 30 minutes ago. Our understanding of it right now, we understand it did not go down. The assistant general manager for the Vikings flew out to Sacramento last night, try and close the deal with Merriweather, and again, the question was whether he wanted a $400,000 signing bonus, was demanding about $1 million a year, and would have settled for probably $800,000. Less than 4 minutes on Pittsburgh's selection. So apparently this will be the only, and yes, that's the Final Jeopardy theme song as the time counts down on the Steelers. This is the only first-round selection the Steelers will have. The Steelers are up, then San Diego is in the hole. We will see if the McMahon trade becomes a reality. There's a spot of tension as we catch our breath, step aside, and then back to New York City early in round 1.
Something's coming. Something hot. Something outrageous.
Yes.
Something provocative. Something exciting.
Great.
Something's coming. Something great.
Watch for the new look of First Run, now with more showings and more movies, like Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin as two sets of twins. Two's company and four's a riot in big business. Michelle Pfeiffer tries to get away from mob life and falls for FBI man Matthew Modine, married to the mob. And Richard Dreyfuss is a New York actor who becomes president of a Caribbean country. Moon over Parador. More movies, more showings. Now First Run is more convenient than ever.
ESPN is your ringside seat for the North American heavyweight title fight. Champion Orlin Norris faces Greg Cage as Budweiser presents Top Rank Boxing. Tuesday night at 9 Eastern, live on ESPN.
Back live at the NFL Draft at the Marriott Marquis. And I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers, with choice number 7, have just gotten the 2-minute warning. We heard them hum the Jeopardy tune from our gallery gods here up above us. So the Steelers will have to hand in their card to Commissioner Pete Rozelle in the form of a question. Now, the rules have changed now here at the NFL Draft. The first 5 or 6 guys, we pretty much knew who was going to go where. And not to say that we are geniuses, it was pretty much to say that the first 5 or 6 players were in a class by themselves. And by the way, what you're seeing below me and to the side of me, we'll be doing every half hour here as we're on for 7 hours live, recapping the selections in case you're tuning in late. Don't ever let it happen again. We'll allow you to tune in late just this one time. I think now, with the Steelers next, the Chargers pick at 8, and that's the one which may go down with the big deal with Jim McMahon, the one that may go down with the big deal involving Atlanta and Washington with Gerald Riggs, or San Diego could keep it by themselves. I do know San Diego was, as we look at Pittsburgh, was also talking with Houston about swapping first-round picks, getting Sean Jones. So the Chargers, really, it looked like they weren't sure what they wanted to do. The Steelers now have under a minute, and you got to figure it's between Andre Rice, and here comes the card, wide receiver, Tim Worley, the running back, maybe Bert Grossman, the hometown kid that played defensive end for Pittsburgh. Here's the Steelers' choice. And we'll check the pronouncer. And here's the commissioner with the 7th overall selection.
Pittsburgh Steelers, first-round selection. Running back, Tim Worley of Georgia. Next up, San Diego Chargers.
Well, Mel Kiper hit that one on the head. And really, you figure it's the next group of 4 or 5 guys. Tim Worley is a tailback, but the man is, some rate him ahead of George Rogers coming out of college. The size and the speed and the quickness that he has. Rushed for 1,200 yards last year, 17 touchdowns last year. Is an excellent blocker. The knee injury which he suffered in the sophomore season, he is recovered from. The youngster from Lumberton, North Carolina, Ken Lumber. 221 pounds, Tommy, and tackling a tailback like that is no easy task.
220-plus pounds, running a just over 4.3 40. This is unbelievable, Chris. This is the reason I quit football. This is the reason I got out.
Well, personally at ESPN, we're glad that you did. So Tim Worley now becomes a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe, now San Diego. You got a gut feeling that all this talk may not go down? This is their pick coming.
I think this is their pick coming. Talking to Dan Henning, he liked Andre Rison a lot. He felt like if Andre Rison was still there, they were either going to try and make a deal or else they were going to just try and go ahead and take the best athlete left in the top athletes as we've seen him go. Andre Rison right now would help them tremendously. It would go along with the guys they drafted last year. He would fit in there, but I still believe that their biggest need is at quarterback. And I still feel like they've got to make some kind of deal with that, or hang around for the supplemental and take a shot at Rosenblatt or Walsh.
Well, now, we mentioned the supplemental. I was just going to mention Pittsburgh. As Bob detailed, it looks like the deal with Merriweather did not go down, that they won't get 2 first-round picks. However, I know San Francisco is very interested in making a deal with Pittsburgh that would send the Steelers their first-round pick, the last overall in the first round, number 28, and also maybe another player, maybe another pick. And you would have to think that if the 49ers get their opportunity to sign Mike Merriweather, that Ed DeBartolo Jr. and company will sign him. They won't make a deal and not be able to pull that one off. Supplemental draft. Tim Rosenblatt, Washington State. Steve Walsh, Miami. These guys will go in the supplemental draft. It'll be held the first week of July. What happens is, I guess, do we explain it now? Maybe we get into this now. The teams with the worst 9 records, of which San Diego would be one of them, they will draft 1 through 9. They all go into a hat. It's weighted, as Dallas would have 28 chips in there, Green Bay 27. At any rate, the first 9 teams would have the first 9 cracks. It's, if you choose Rosenblatt or Steve Walsh, you'd essentially be using a pick, next year's first-round pick you'd lose in the draft. So San Diego has 2 shots, or let's say, they would draft at worst number 9. Maybe they will wait to take one of those guys. Would you, Joe? Would you wait?
I think they have so many needs, Chris. I really believe that they can afford to wait to take a quarterback in the supplemental. Right now, Dan Henning's taken over a football team. He's got so many different areas to fill that if he can get a quality wide receiver like Horizon, it would help him. If he can get a Burt Grossman at an offensive line position, it would help him. So, I mean, he's got help coming, or defensive line position. He's got help coming from different places. When you look at their needs, I mean, it's across the board. Cornerback is obviously one. Deion Sanders is gone with all his jewelry. One for, a seat for him, a seat for his jewelry, a seat for his family. That's going to be an expensive trip to Atlanta. I got to be honest with you. But again, the Chargers really are in the catbird seat here. I'm sure they're trying to work a deal with the Washington Redskins still. I got off the phone at 10 minutes to 12 before we went on the air. Nothing was dead, but nothing was still going. So I still think that's a live possibility.
Tommy, you got to see the Chargers a couple times last year. You played against them. The one thing with Dan Henning, I mean, he's in there now. He didn't have to win this year. I mean, he's going to have a few years. Maybe it is best for him to stockpile. They do need a lot of help.
I think that they need so much help right now that they're in a situation where a guy like Bryson certainly could not hurt them. They can wait on the quarterback. The thing is that these kids are like #1 choices for next year, and I think that it's going to get down into a situation where money, economics, always affects what all ball players and coaches and owners do.
Well, we're going to cue up Randy Newman now with It's Money That Matters, and maybe play that throughout the whole first round. Speaking of money that matters, going back to Deion Sanders for a minute, the Falcons will sign him. A lot of teams are worried about him putting in a guarantee. What will it cost them to put in a contract, a guarantee that he doesn't play baseball? He's been playing AA baseball with Albany, the Yankees in the Eastern League. Word that we had understood this weekend is that immediately George Steinbrenner promotes him to AAA to maybe put the squeeze on a little bit. But I think he wants to play football over baseball.
You know why? I'll tell you why he wants to play football over baseball. He's the kind of kid who you could see by the jewelry, you could see by his personality, he's going to become a center of attention in Atlanta a heck of a lot quicker than if he winds up banging around the New York Yankee organization from AAA up to the majors, down to the minors, and God knows where else they're going to wind up putting him. The kid's, he likes stardom, he likes the neon. Peachtree is very comfortable, I think. They probably have a space for him, a little star on it already, a little star in the sidewalk for him.
Next to Dominique.
Next to Dominique. And I mean, he would fit in very well. It would give that organization a lift which they haven't had for a long time.
Now the fun begins because the San Diego Chargers are up next. Do they keep the pick? Do they get Jim McMahon? Do they get Stan Humphries from Washington? You know they'll do something when we come back. We are back live at the NFL Draft. You can see the clock, a little more than 7 minutes left as the San Diego Chargers have the #1 selection up next. The number 8 overall, will they keep it? Will they send it to Chicago in exchange for Jim McMahon? What's the latest from Winnetka, Illinois? Andrea Kramer's at the home of McMahon's agent, Steve Zucker. Anything cooking there, Andrea?
Well, Chris, Jim McMahon is upstairs. He said that he has no comment to make when and until some sort of deal is culminated. Right now, there's no news. Let's go to the Bears camp with Pete Axthelm and see if there's any news there.
Very little, except the fact that McMahon has, on local television, made some statements which are basically sayonara. He thinks he's out of Chicago. He thinks it's a done deal. Ditka is still in meetings. We're waiting to hear from him specifically. I have to repeat what I said on game day this morning, that you think of Jim McMahon, the headbands, the flair, the style, and they can just brush him aside. It seems as though they raised the price of fame. Back to New York.
All right, Axe, raising the price of fame indeed, and the Chargers are now talking to everybody, I guess. There is an announcement being made here. We'll pick that up in a moment. San Diego Chargers pick next. And after that is Miami, who also will have a very intriguing selection because they could go big back or they could go defense, which, let's face it, the Miami Dolphins certainly need help there. But all eyes are now upon the San Diego Chargers. And, you know, the calls cost more to go to the West Coast here. They're running up a pretty good phone bill as they've been burning it up, as teams trying to maybe make it a last-minute offer for the San Diego Chargers. If the Chargers do surrender their first-round pick and it goes to the Bears, of course, they would have 4. If it goes to Atlanta, they would have 2. Right now, the teams with multiple first-round picks are the Cardinals picking 10 and 17, the Bears picking 11, 12, and 25, the Rams picking 21 and 26. And if San Diego makes a deal with Atlanta, they would have the 2 selections as well. I know for a fact that Atlanta wanted whoever was, as long as Ryson or Worley were left, Atlanta wants one of those players. Andre Ryson, the wide receiver, who young quarterback Chris Miller might need, is there. I know Atlanta is one of the teams on the phone with San Diego because they could really use a receiver. There's a team that is starting to make a move here, Joe. A young quarterback in Miller, the couple of linebackers they drafted last year. Ryson would make sense for them. There's
absolutely.
Atlanta.
Absolutely. I really believe that they are making some good decisions. I think Atlanta is in a rebuilding situation. We saw it towards the end of the season. Their entire football team started to play better. Chris Miller, besides being a 5-handicap golfer, had a chance to go through an entire season as the quarterback. He took all the heat. He went through the growing processes. Now he's in a situation where he can assume a leadership role, and they start to put the pieces together around him. And really, you win with defense. You start winning with defense, and then you build your offense up to make it competitive. So I think Atlanta has started that way. One thing about Chicago, having 3 first-round draft choices, Chris, they can't afford to keep 3. They're not going to sign 3 first rounds. It's going to cost them too much money.
They might get 4 here.
If that happens, then they'll probably deal at least the 1. If they have 4, they'll deal 2. So I wouldn't see Chicago with any more than 2 first rounds because economics won't allow it.
The Chargers, we should mention, did go #1 wide receiver last year, so we're talking about Ryson. They drafted Anthony Miller in the 1st round and also drafted Quinn Early in the 3rd round, another wide receiver. So they've made a move towards that position. I think, Tommy, that if you're San Diego, well, you commented at the beginning that you were talking about McMahon. Would you make that move, or would you keep it and get maybe a defensive player like Grossman?
I think I would keep the choice, but that's because I see Rice, and I've only seen him in the one game where Joe actually covered that game, but he is in a different caliber, a different receiver than Early. And even with the quarterbacking problems that they have in San Diego, this kid, all you got to do is throw the ball within the 4 or 5 yards of him. I saw him on a 4th down and 42 situation where he grabbed the ball between 2 people in the end zone, Gator Bowl. This kid is the best receiver out there.
Yes, and I know Atlanta wants him. And will Atlanta get him? Will San Diego get him? What is the story? Let's go over to Bob Lee and Mel Kiper as the Chargers are certainly getting their money's worth for their time allotment, aren't they?
They certainly are. They got less now than 3 minutes. You know, one reason might be if it is the 3-way, it could be so complicated, it's going to take that long to write it all down. You know, Pete Axthelm lamenting the lack of sentiment in the league. Pete, look at Tom Landry. I mean, 100,000 people honoring the folk hero yesterday throughout the Metroplex. San Diego is up. We get the specter, and we talk about it every year, Mel, of guys, and there's the Charger table is now 2.5 minutes. Players who in the weeks and days before the draft, their fortunes have risen in the eyes of the scouts. And then on draft day, you've got players who might have been picked by this point, but really start to plummet, and you get that herd mentality. Is there a player now you thought might have been gone, and if the Chargers don't take him, you can call him a plummeting pick?
I think right now you'd have to look at Tom Ricketts as one player we don't hear anything about. He was a highly ranked offensive tackle right behind Mandrich going into the year. Now nobody talks about Tom Ricketts. He had that foot problem at the end of the year, and he has slid down. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Tracy Rocker may have slid all the way out of the first round. Wayne Martin, another kid from Arkansas, a defensive lineman, could go as late as the third. John Ford slid down. Sean Collins from Northern Arizona has moved ahead. Lawyer Tillman obviously has moved ahead, so he has moved down as well. But the guy who's moved up is Andy Heck from Notre Dame, a big offensive tackle. He's up to 288 pounds. You'll be hearing his name.
Has he moved up this far, though?
Not quite this far, but he could very easily be a mid-first round pick.
But Eric Metcalf has.
Eric Metcalf, people are going to try to move up to
and
get.
Hartley Dykes.
Hartley Dykes is another one people would like to
These
move up to
guys are on
get.
the move. They're going up, and we
Definitely.
might see Eric Metcalf. We talked about it yesterday on SportsCenter, and I think we touched on it earlier. Metcalf is a versatile guy, so he is on the move. We have 70 seconds now on San Diego's pick to be followed by Miami. But the Chargers, and again, if you've just joined us, the rumor that we first reported, the reports that we brought you on game day this morning, the possibility of Chicago trading quarterback Jim McMahon to the Chargers in return for yet another first-round pick for the Bears, which would give them 4 first-round selections. They already have 3. Nobody has ever had 4 number 1s. What they're about to do today with 3 number 1s, it'll be the 12th time in the history of the common draft. So Chicago is drunk with draft choices. They've got 20 today. The Chargers have needs all the way across the board. And Steve Ortmeyer, second-year man now in charge of the player personnel for the Chargers, has less than 30 seconds. Win now. That's the pressure in the league. You don't like the McMahon trade if it happens better than anybody else has.
No, not at all. I think they made a mistake a few years ago with Mark Vlasic. He went earlier than expected. Mark Malone's not the answer. Now, Jim McMahon, I would rather go for Mike Elkins, a Terrence Jones, a Rodney Pete in the second round and develop him, especially Elkins and Pete, rather than make a trade of this magnitude for a quarterback who's aging and has had a lot of serious injury problems during his career.
Well, if he was healthy, and San Diego was passing, well, Don Weiss, the executive director of the league, does have the card.
Is now selected.
So they have put Miami up. But apparently the pick has been made, so I think we'll get back to the podium now because the card was on its way up in the hands of Don Weiss. And I don't think he did not write enough on that card. After years of experience, you can tell. I don't think it's a trade unless it was scribbled in ahead of time. It looked like they might have put a name down. Let's see.
San Diego Chargers select on the first round Bert Grossman, defensive end, Pittsburgh.
Well, it wasn't a trade. It was a one-line scribble. Bert Grossman out of Pitt. One of the guys who really has seen his fortunes rise over the last several weeks. This young man, 6'5", 270. Every year he got better. Had a bad ankle his senior year, Mel, but really came on over the last 4 games. This guy has improved through his career, and the scouts were wise enough to concentrate, I guess, on the last 4 games this year.
Well, the last 4 games are very important, Bob. The All-Star games, the Combine workout. You can see his pass rush ability. You can see how quickly he reacts to the ball. He's got the size. He's up to 270. He'll get stronger once he gets into an all-season weight training program. There's no question that Bert Grossman was the best defensive lineman in this draft. And on some teams' board, Bob, he was the number 1 player in the entire draft. Not just a first-round pick, but the number 1 player in the entire draft.
All right, so McMahon's trade, a rumor. Maybe there was substance to it. And I think right now, you'd have to think that they did not work the 3-way. Washington still, which was part of that 3-way matrix in the rumored San Diego, Atlanta, Washington 3-way trade, is going to have to be out there shopping for a running back. No surprise, Washington without a first-round pick. It'll be a while before we get a chance to really discuss them in depth. Miami is up. And this is a team, Mel, that through the years, yes, they have defensive needs, but they have continued to expend blue chip or premium, meaning first or second-round picks on defense. They haven't gone offense in the first round in quite some time, and they're going to have a pressing need to go defense again today.
They have needs on defense, but they've had them for years. And if you look at that offensive football team right now, they need a running back. And they need somebody who has that strength and that power. And a Sammy Smith has it, a Cleveland Gary has it. But if you look on the defensive side of the ball, there's a Lewis Oliver sitting there for them, who's the kind of defensive back that they're looking for. I think if you heard Don Shula during Super Bowl time, all he talked about was David Fulcher and the impact that he had with the Bengals. David Fulcher is as big as Oliver, but he only runs in the 4.65 range. Oliver runs in the 4.3s. I think right now Lewis Oliver is the best defensive player on the board, and he should be the Dolphins' pick.
A 4.3 defensive back who can hit like a hammer. Well, Pete Axtell out. At Bears headquarters, Jim McMahon at this moment is still a Bear.
Yeah, yes, he is. It appears the deal didn't go through. There are two possibilities here, obviously. One thing is the Chargers could have taken Grossman and put him in a package, which will go to the Bears eventually from McMahon. I think more likely is, as I reported early this morning, that I think San Diego preferred the deal where they get Steve Ortmeyer, the general manager of San Diego, really likes Stan Humphries, the backup quarterback of the Redskins, where they get Humphries, offensive tackle Simmons, and a bunch of draft choices change hands, and Gerald Riggs goes to the Redskins. I think that's what we're going to see as the day goes on. Let's go back to Chris.
All right, Axe, thank you. Miami has an intriguing selection. They could pick a big back that Don Shula has been talking about, like Cleveland Gary, a guy that played fullback at the University of Miami, whose offensive coordinator, Gary Stevens, is now the offensive coordinator with them. They could go Sammy Smith. They could go defense. Here's the commissioner.
Miami Dolphins, first-round selection. Sammy Smith, running back, Florida State.
So,
next up, the Phoenix Cardinals.
Miami, which needs defense like you read about, has decided to go for Sammy Smith, the back who on some days looks like he's the greatest player in the history of the National, or could be the greatest player in the history of the National Football League, but it's a guy that some teams were a little worried about because on some days he comes to the park like a free agent. That's not us talking, that's just scouts who I've talked to and everyone's talked to around the league. But Sammy Smith, the running back from Florida State, is another one like Worley, over 220 pounds at a tailback. Came out early like Worley, had 1 year left for eligibility, is an excellent receiver, so you know that fits in with Miami. Shula has been talking about a big back for a long time. He's also a good pass blocker, which will help, and 2,500 yards in his career at Florida State. The youngster from Zellwood, Florida, now becomes a member of the Miami Dolphins. One little thing we will add, with Ryson not going in either 8 or 9, the top two receivers are Ryson and Hartley Dykes. They may fall all the way, just not because their value isn't as good, just the way the draft is gone. They may go down to be available for the Jets, Seattle, who I don't think will go that way, and New England. 14, 15, 16 are now doing a little dance because they may have a shot at a receiver they never thought they had their chance at. Let's go to Miami and Sammy Smith. They need defense, Tom. Is that a good pick, Tom?
Well, I mean, Sammy Smith is going to fit into anybody's offense. He's an excellent back if he can show up, and you know, he's had a few injury problems during his career. The thing is when you need defense the way the Dolphins need defense, I can't explain you going after a guy like this and not trying to fortify your defensive side of the football.
I want to get into something else with you guys. Here's Jim McMahon, and it still may happen. Jim McMahon, Gerald Riggs being bantered about like they may go to other teams, stars of their teams. They go back to their team, Joe and Tommy, this fall. Do they put that out of their mind? Sure, they are professionals, or do you have to live with that for the rest of your life, that the team is not that high on you anymore?
What happens is you have to understand you're dealing with guys with major egos, and you really have. You've got guys who have egos that are, you know, second to owners and coaches as far as where their positions are. That's an insult to Jim McMahon. Even that his name is mentioned in a trade, even that he wants out. Now the fact that he wants out and he can't get out, that makes it even worse. We saw that with Jay Schrader in Washington a year ago. He forced that trade to the Raiders. As far as Gerald Riggs goes, that's not going to be such an insult. He's a great football player, and he's under contract. He's going to contribute to that football team. But Jimmy Mack, I think, wanted out sincerely because I don't believe he's going to win the job from Tom Zach. I think they're going to go to camp and say it's open. But Jim has been hurt a lot, and he's going to be battling himself in injuries to gain the #1 starting job, as well as Tom Zach in competition. When we get to the Chicago picks, that's when you may see some, you might hear Jim's name come up again. As far as the Miami choice goes, absolutely drives me crazy. Cannot understand why in heaven's names the Miami Dolphins would not try to improve their secondary, if no place else. Lewis Oliver should have been their pick.
Or Donnell Wolford, who is the top corner. The next pick is Phoenix. Now, Phoenix has 2 picks in the first round, the 10th and the 17th. I don't think they're going to pick Kelly Stoffer again. They've tried that a few times. You never know what the Phoenix Cardinals are going to do. They always hold the first curveball or the knuckler on draft day, and it looks like the card has gone up. You've got Phoenix with 2 picks coming up, and then with 10 and 17, and then the Bears with 3 first-round picks. I want to get back to that comment about Riggs and McMahon in a moment, but here's the Cardinals pick with the commissioner.
Phoenix Cardinals, first-round selection. Eric Hill, linebacker, Louisiana State.
There is a good
Next
pick.
up,
That's an
is the
uncardinal-like
Chicago
pick.
Bears on a choice from the LA Raiders.
We hate to say that, but let's face it, the Cards have provided us with curveballs. I just want to quickly finish that thought, Tommy. Was your name ever mentioned in a trade that you know of with Denver, or some of your teammates who are outstanding defensive players, and did it affect them after, even if they stayed with the Broncos?
Well, I was not personally, but some of my teammates, Lyle Alzado, when he went in the deal to the Raiders, some of the players were mentioned, and I agree with Joe. When you insult a ball player, especially a guy who has served you as much as Jim McMahon has served Chicago, he is not going to be able to forget about it, and you may be opening up a can of worms, not only right now at draft time, but when you get to camp, you may have a very hard time dealing with Jim McMahon.
All right, Eric Hill goes to Phoenix, who is, that's their first of 2 first-round selections. Chicago has the next 2 picks. Let me throw it out. I'm going to guess Donnell Wolford, cornerback, and the offensive lineman of their choice would either be Heck or Brian Williams. Let's go upstairs to the gallery gods and the god himself, Bino Cook.
Well, all the crazy people in New York are not at 42nd and Times Square. Some of them show up here on the balcony for the draft, and we got 3 fans from Miami. They needed frequent miles, so they came here, and they're all shocked over the choice of Sammy Smith, running back. You're shocked.
How you doing? You know, I thought they would take Louis Oliver, but I guess they want more offense. They'll have to win by 45 points every game now.
Well, I want to ask you, you come up here. Why? I mean, you could stay at home.
To have fun.
To have fun, to watch Miami blow it in the draft again.
Now, he's a bachelor. You 2 are married. I mean, did you have trouble getting permission?
Wasn't hard at all. We just had to make sure we came here and stood next to you. That was all we had to do.
We made them an offer they couldn't refuse.
Okay, let me ask you, what do you think of the draft choice of Sammy Smith?
Somebody who's 28th in the league in defense, you would have thought they would have drafted somebody to help in that end, not more offense.
Are the Miami fans critical of the draft choices in the last few years of the Dolphins?
They're very upset with them, at least the ones where I am.
Your season ticket holders, are you upset too?
Yes, I am.
Who would you have drafted?
Louis Oliver.
Louis Oliver or anybody on defense?
Louis Oliver or Eric Hill, somebody that's a big hitter.
Okay, I'm going to make it quick. The second round, quick, just you. Who would you pick?
Tracy Rocker.
Okay, now we will interview some of these fans later this afternoon. Now back to Chris Berman.
All right, Bino, thank you very much. And one of the reasons they may have gone with Sammy Smith is that they did not sign Melvin Bratton, a guy who would have been a first-round pick a year ago, broke his leg. They had until midnight last night to sign him. Did not. Melvin Bratton is available in this draft. 2 other notes. Mike Merriweather has signed with the Minnesota Vikings. That trade is now pending only a physical, and the Steelers will get 2 first-round picks. And one other pearl of wisdom, Bert Grossman, defensive end, now a member of the Chargers. He is half-brother to Margot Adams. Thought we'd throw that in before we return to the Marriott Marquis and the draft in New York in a moment.
So Chicago, as we are back live in New York City, about to make the first. Maybe they'll make them bang bang. They go 11-12. Number 11 selection that the Bears own by virtue of the Willie Gault trade. Then, of course, the number 12 overall selection in round 1, part of their compensation for the departure of free agent linebacker Wilbur Marshall last year to the Washington Redskins. Just again to backtrack, we have had 10 selections, a very quick first round, and 9 minutes now remaining for Chicago to make their pick. San Diego for Bert Grossman and the number 8 hole. Miami for Sammy Smith, running back out of Florida State, and Phoenix for Eric Hill. You heard the talk about Miami's crying needs, and they seem to be annual ones for help on defense, but they went offense. And Chris touched on it a moment ago before the break, the fact that Melvin Bratton is in this draft pool. He did not reach an agreement. Bratton, a talent whose opportunity stalled by circumstance. It's a long road back. He runs dirt hills incessantly to a pounding beat. Melvin Bratton runs from the reality that his football career crumbled in its finest hour. He's climbed hills before and now faces perhaps the tallest.
16 months ago, Bratton had the world on a string, a first-rounder to be at running back on the top team of the country, the Miami Hurricanes. So close, yet so far. Last year, it was a gamble, but the Dolphins invested a 6th-round draft pick on Bratton, knowing that he faced a long rehab. Bratton did not sign. He did pursue the rehab, long and hard, spending the 1988 NFL season working out, unsigned, unpaid, but resolute. He is worth more than a 6th-round draft pick.
Where he will be today as he trains, unable to reach an accord. As of last night with Miami, we will see. He is available to be drafted. Melvin Bratton, a talent. He may not be ready for the beginning of the season. I'll tell you who is ready. The Chicago Bears. They have 2 back-to-back selections, their first 2 of the 3 #1 picks that they have. They have reached a decision. Maybe we'll get both of them back-to-back. Let's get to the podium as we await the word. Bears, one of the 2 teams in the league. 2016 signed veteran free agents. The Bengals elected to not dip into that pool of some 600 players, and the Bears did the same. Now, Pinchback going over the pronouncer. Maybe we're going to get back-to-back picks. And I think, yeah, we've got 2. So we're going to get 2 names quickly as we get a fix on where Bill Tobin, Mike Ditka, Mike McCaskey are going. This is a team that through the 80s has had 10 #1 picks. 5 of them have played in the Pro Bowl. The commissioner.
All right, Chicago Bears select as a result of a previous trade with the LA Raiders. They used the Raiders' first choice in the first round to select Donnell Wolford.
Defensive back.
Defensive back, Clemson. Then the Bears on their own first round selection. This is a trade from Washington to the Bears. First round choice. Trace Armstrong, defensive end, Florida. Next up, Denver Broncos.
Donnell Wolford, Trace Armstrong, as the Bears make a double dose of some defensive help. And let's take a look at Donnell Wolford, outstanding player for Clemson, who started for 4 years, also returns punts, always through the tough receiver. First Clemson defensive back to be a first-team All-American ever. This is a guy who's got corner skills and 4.5 speed.
I'll tell you what, Bob, these are 2 great picks for the Chicago Bears, one of the best organizations at evaluating talent in the NFL. See Wolford, how he closes on the football. Great reactions, very tough individual, causes interceptions like he did here. Just a fine football player. He might lack the recovery speed of Deion, but he was a 4-year starter. You see him here as a punt return ability. He can put 6 points on the board for you in this capacity. Great choice here. I really thought Phoenix would have to look at Donnell Wolford because of their needs at left corner. I think it's a great pick. Trace Armstrong, I thought, was one of the most underrated players in this draft. I think he will be more productive early in his career than Bert Grossman, and that's saying an awful lot because I'm high on Grossman as well.
He transferred, didn't he?
Transferred from Arizona State. Very highly competitive individual. Probably the toughest player in this draft, along with Darrell Johnston from Syracuse.
He didn't play, though, in the pro season. He had some knee problems, went to the combine, and at that point really was only able to show his strength doing some reps. So it took a while to get a fix on him in this postseason.
Well, he had 2 minor knee injuries, Bob. They were arthroscopic knee injuries with cartilage damage. He's fine now. He tested out well prior to the draft. Trace Armstrong is fine. He's in great shape, and he will be a great addition to a team, the Chicago Bears, that were desperate for defensive line help and desperate for a cornerback to work opposite Bestie Jackson.
This guy has run some 4.8s, Trace Armstrong. We have him down at 4.9. So all the talk of the trade, the possibility, and Jim McMahon's ego being bruised, as you heard the discussion from Chris and the guys about, you talk about a trade and the trade doesn't come off, but it didn't come off. And so, as again, we will recap what we have seen to this point in the first round. Donnell Wolford, Trace Armstrong. The Denver Broncos are up next with approximately 13 minutes to make that pick, to be followed by the New York Jets. So the talk of a 3-way has not happened. We haven't seen that yet. We understand, again, if you have just joined us, that indeed Mike Merriweather has signed with his new team, Minnesota, has reached an accord. So apparently now that number 24 pick, if you're doing the draft with us at home, will belong to Pittsburgh as compensation as part of that trade. And now we wait to see what Denver does. Denver got up to the plate last year in the first round and didn't even foul it off. It was like woof, 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 down and out against Ted Gregory, traded to New Orleans before the season even had a stubble of a beard on it.
Well, they need help on defense, but I think all their defensive players that they might be looking at here, Donnell Wolford, a Trace Armstrong, and Eric Hill, players like this are gone. I think you can't force a defensive need choice in this spot. You have to look at the running back, fullback position. They need a complete player in that capacity. I think Cleveland Gary from Miami would be a great pick here. So I think you'd have to go against your needs and take the best player on the board, and I really believe Gary is the best player here.
Well, Denver owner Pat Bowlen has the money to spend because he flashed that wad in front of Bruce Smith, and of course that trade didn't go down. Donnell Wolford, Trace Armstrong selected by the Bears, and Pete Axtell out at Bears headquarters in Lake Forest. The trade didn't go down, but the Bears, by at least our wisdom here, picked up 2 darn good players.
Thank you, Bob. The Bears, not surprisingly, they built their reputation on defense. They went for these 2 very good defensive players. A minority opinion on that is Al Davis, who traded Willie Gault for that number 11 selection, says there is no player in his draft that's going to go 11th that I would want better than Willie Gault. So that's one thought on the matter. He said there's other ways to build a team than the draft. Going back 2 choices to Miami, yes, I'm shocked. I thought they would take Eric Hill. They're desperately needing linebackers, having gotten rid of Hugh Green and Bob Brzezinski. I really thought they would take Hill. A lot of people thought they would take Louis Oliver, the strong safety. They went for the running back, Sammy Smith. I'm so puzzled. The last time I was this puzzled by a Don Shula draft selection, it was some guy he took in the last choice of the first round. I think his name was Marino. Let's go to Kevin Kiley in Anaheim for some other thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Well, I'm out here. I think I could hear a collective sigh when Trace Armstrong went in that last draft pick to the Bears. Armstrong is a guy that defensive coordinator of the Rams, Fritz Shermer, went down to Florida to see. He's an up-the-field pass rusher, and that's one of the Rams' really desperate needs. They have free agents along that defensive front. They're also looking at Bill Hawkins out of Miami, so they're hoping he's going to be around later. The defensive line, of course, for the Rams is a primary need. Donnell Wolford, I think, fits very well, those 2 picks for the Bears, because they like to play pressure defense, and they need cornerbacks that can play man-to-man, and Wolford out of Clemson did a great job at man-to-man for Clemson. He'll play that with the Bears, and of course Armstrong getting upfield, they'll be able to get the kind of pressure that they would like. I'd also like to talk a little bit about that Sammy Smith draft pick by Miami. Everybody's kind of down on it, but I think you need to remember that Sammy Smith was a potential Heisman candidate going into the year. He's a guy that can really play. The question about Smith was whether he could stand the physical punishment, whether he could stand up to the pounding. If he does, he'll take a lot of pressure off Dan Marino, who has not been effective over the past few years. So Smith works out. He's going to be a great draft pick for Miami. And remember, if you take a defensive guy, that the offense on the other team can run away from that guy. So let's take a good look at Sammy Smith. He may be a little bit better. We'll be back with more of ESPN's draft coverage in a moment.
Back live at the NFL Draft at the Marriott Marquis. The next pick, number 13, belongs to Tommy's favorite team, the Denver Broncos. I think we can say that safely, but it may not belong to them for long because the trade is in the works with the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, a team that I know wanted to move up 3, 4, maybe 5, 6 places, a team that would like a wide receiver. And what's happened is neither Ryson, Hartley Dykes, or little Metcalf, a guy who's a running back who could be a wide receiver, they're all available if Cleveland does make this deal, which we'll find out about. Why don't we find that out right now?
To recap this trade, Denver trades the current choice, their 13th pick in the first round, to Cleveland for Cleveland's first, Cleveland's second, Cleveland's fifth, and Cleveland's ninth. So Cleveland is selecting in Denver's place on the first round, and they choose Eric Metcalf, running back, Texas.
Well, there's kind of a surprise. I would say that's
the New York Jets.
Some sort of a shocker. Let us first go with Denver, Tommy. Here's a team that needs defense, but Louis Oliver is probably the highest-rated defensive player on the board, and that's the one position the Broncos are set on defense, right, at safety?
Well, Louis Oliver, Denver has Dennis Smith and Mike Harden. Both are Pro Bowl caliber performers. And I think that when you look at that, Denver is thinking that the defensive talent that's left on the board will still be available when they get down to the 20th pick, which would previously be Cleveland's.
And here comes the Jets pick. We're going to get back in a moment to talk about Eric Metcalf, which is kind of a surprise but in the Cleveland scheme of things, it makes some sense. The Jets, if they like a wide receiver as the heir apparent to Wesley Walker, Ryson or Hartley Dykes could make that move. I think they would have gone Trace Armstrong, but again, he is gone. Your best value are some offensive people left, Joe.
Well, I got to believe it's going to be Andre Ryson. I talked to Joe Walton earlier this week. If they felt he was there, they'd take him.
Here it is.
New York Jets, first-round choice. Jeff Lageman, linebacker, Virginia.
Well, like we said, if you thought it was too smooth, stick around a while. It's like New England weather. It'll change in 5 minutes. Jeff Lageman, no question the best rated inside linebacker from Virginia, but a guy projected to everybody that I talk with in the second round. Oh boy, and Joe Walton has taken the front already. They're chanting Joe must go. But Lageman is a guy that is by far and away the top-rated inside linebacker, all ACC in Virginia. He's tall. He's over 6'5". He's 240. From Great Falls, Virginia, recorded 117 tackles last year. The Jets, a team trying to rebuild its defense. It did in the defensive backfield last year in the draft with McMillan and Hasty and other kids like James Shake Your Booty. They need linebackers. They need linemen. It's just kind of a problem. Defensive lineman. I would say Metcalf is a mild eyebrow raiser, but the Jets going inside linebacker like so. What he is the heir apparent to Lance Mel. That's what they're thinking, Lance Mel with the knee injuries. But we got some excitement, Joe.
Well, we got some excitement. Obviously, this is what the fans wait for here in New York. They wait for the Giant picks. They wait for the Jet picks. Traditionally, they've been real tough on the Jet picks. And this one here, again, it gives them reason to look at their papers and find the guy and say, what's he doing in the first round? It's in the second round. But remember, last year they went offensive line and defensive secondary. This year they try and, like you say, shore up that middle linebacker position. I don't see it as a bad deal. I think if Eric Metcalf was there, that would have been their #1 choice. But they were ready with their secondary pick, and it turned out being Lageman.
It is Lageman. Remember, they shocked this draft in '83 when they picked little-known Ken O'Brien at quarterback, and he has done very well. So Mike Hickey likes to go cut back against the grain, so they say. That's exactly what Mike and the Jets have done. And again, what you have, let's go back to Metcalf with Cleveland real quick, but as I see Seattle coming up next, and I got to believe they're going to go with the offensive lineman of their choice, either Heck from Notre Dame or Brian Williams from Minnesota, a guy that can play center, guard, or tackle. I know Chuck Knox doesn't pick offensive lineman #1 very often, but I have to believe that's where they're looking, or else they go maybe with Oliver as an heir apparent to as a Kenny Easley type player. I don't think it will be Oliver. Let's get back to Metcalf. In the Cleveland system, a team, Tommy and Joe, that has a chance and really had better make their move under Bud Carson the next year or two or lose it. It gives them a whole other dimension in their offense. A small receiver that can go up with Webster Slaughter and go down the field. A lot better.
Well, and not only that, Metcalf can do so many things for you other than come out of the backfield and catch the football. He's an excellent runner. He's going to help you in your special teams area. This is a kid that can do a lot of things. He couldn't be a bad choice for Cleveland.
You know, they now can both put him and Ice Cube back there to return kicks and punts, and they can never kick it away from anybody, right? Seattle and New England, and I'll tell you what's sitting there for New England is the wide receiver of their choice. And I think if you told Dick Steinberg a couple days ago that he might have Ryson and he might have Hartley Dykes to choose from, which might be their lead, I think he would have told you, first of all, put you in a straitjacket, but second, he'll be happy to take it. Seattle and New England are the next picks. Let's go over to Bobby and Mel and see if they've recovered.
No, we haven't. I mean, this could be the biggest. This is a reach. This is like Muggsy Bogues trying to block a shot by Manute Bol. Lageman, not only is that a reach, perhaps, but it's certainly going to have a domino effect through the middle of this first round.
I'll tell you what, Bob. It's obvious to me right now that the Jets just don't understand what the draft's all about.
All right.
You're supposed
Speak your mind.
When you buy in a draft is just as important as who you select. And what they're saying right now is that Jeff Lageman is one of the top 10 players in this draft, and there's no way.
Look at the players who are still out there. Louis Oliver is still available. Andre Ryson is still available. Hartley Dykes is still available. Joe Wolf, great offensive lineman. Andy Heck. These players all rated far above Lageman.
Dykes is the player that they should have taken. If you team Dykes with Altoon, you're going to cause so many problems for defensive coordinators. They'll never sleep the week before the game. You have two guys with that kind of size and that kind of ability. There's no way that cornerbacks in the NFL can match up with a Dykes and Toon combination. Why they would take Jeff Lageman this high out is beyond me. If they're interested in Lageman, you move down. You don't stay with the 14th pick in the first round. There's no way Jeff Lageman is one of the top 10 players in this draft.
I know you're working on a book, The History of the Draft for the last 20 years. I think you just found a new entry for the Reach chapter, perhaps. A lot of wisdom on draft day. We'll see if history bears it out. 10 minutes on the selection for Seattle. They own that because of the Fred Young deal. We'll be back to the Marriott Marquis after this.
I used to think all printers were alike. You gave them the work, and then you hoped you got it back on time. And right. Then I discovered Sir Speedy, and I don't have to hope anymore. They really know how to take care of my business. All the office forms, brochures, sales sheets, labels, invoices. Hey, you name it, and they get it done. And I like that in a printer.
Try Sir Speedy for your large copy jobs. Our prices are very competitive, and our service is tops.
Right now, you could be watching your commercial, your business advertised on television with NYT Cable. Be among the top advertisers who recognize the power of being seen on television. Cable television. It's visual. It's enticing. It reaches your customers. And it's affordable. Be a part of the fun and call for more information. You'll get the benefits of being seen on television at a price you can afford. Call NYT. It's the place to be.
Back at the draft live in New York, Eric Metcalf has become a member, or certainly has been drafted, and I assume he's going to sign with the Cleveland Browns. His dad was a pretty darn good player for the Cardinals and the Washington Redskins. Like father, like son. Back in the mid-'70s, Terry Metcalf was a two-time All-Pro running back for the St. Louis Cardinals. Just 8 years after his retirement in 1981, he sends forth his son Eric, a senior at Texas, to chase down the same dreams in the NFL that he himself once achieved.
When I was young, you know how you go out there and play football and everyone says, well, I want to be this guy, I want to be that guy. I wanted to be Terry Metcalf because that was my dad and he was playing professional football.
Even when I coached him in high school, I was amazed a lot of times because I knew I seen that move somewhere before. But it's unique that I can see it through my son.
He's very similar to his dad. He may be a tad quicker than Terry was. Terry and Eric are built very, very similar. There's enthusiasm in their eyes when you look at them, and they're the same type of running backs.
They're exciting type players. When they get when the ball gets in their hands, you know that something can happen every time. Both exceptional football players, and I'm sure that Eric will have a career like his dad. He's a darting, dashing, fun-loving type running back that can put the ball in the end zone. And they're a lot alike.
I won't let anyone tell me, well, you should have been like your father or your father was better than you, because I'm not trying to make everyone else happy. I'm trying to make myself and my family happy, and I think if I can do that, everything should be fine.
You know, he can't be me. He can only be himself. He can't be anybody else. And, you know, sometimes media personnel have said, well, he has big shoes to fill. And I just tell him, well, he wears a 9.5, I wear a 10. He fits his very well. And the bottom line is I tell him, no matter what you do, just do the best that you can. And if you don't make it, that's fine, because I'm going to still love you anyway.
Always good to hear from our friend Neil Young on draft day. Tommy, you tried to tackle Terry Metcalf a couple times. If Eric is anything like his dad, opponents are in trouble, right?
Eric certainly has some big shoes to fill, but I'll tell you what, he runs just like Terry. He's up on his toes, and what I like about him, he has the great vision. So he makes that Gale Sayers type cut across field. In him, Cleveland now has about 3 guys that every time they touch the football, you're going to have to worry about protecting the end zone.
Joe, at the end of Terry's career, he was with the Redskins, and you were there. He's a special kind of player, right?
I had a chance to play with Terry the latter part of his career, and of course I didn't get a chance to see him like Eric is now. And one thing about Eric, what people don't realize, is he's only 20 years old. You're talking about a very young man who has a tremendous amount of maturity and a tremendous amount of ability to exploit. I agree with Tommy. I think anytime one of those 3 guys in Cleveland touches the ball, the defense has got to wonder when it's going to wind up in the end zone. I think he's quicker than his father. I really believe that he's quicker. He's a little smaller, which he should be quicker. But if he's got he's got all that Metcalf blood running through him, he's got stardom written all over him.
In the genes. We're halfway through the first round here at the Marriott Marquis in New York. We're waiting on the Seattle Seahawks, who own the next selection. We'll be back right after this. We are back talking football on this Sunday afternoon, maybe Sunday morning where you are, live at the Marriott Marquis in New York at the NFL Draft. And tomorrow we make a switch. We have college baseball, Monday Night Baseball. It'll be Kentucky against Mississippi as ESPN's coverage of NCAA baseball continues with that SEC battle. Live coverage at 8 Eastern, 5 on the West Coast, maybe 3 o'clock in Alaska and Hawaii, or maybe 2. Seattle, Oliver is there. I don't think it's going to be him. I still think it's going to be a lineman of their choice, maybe Heck or Brian Williams, or they could go wide receiver. Joe, what would you do?
Well, you see, they lose 2 tight ends in that plan B. They lose 2 centers in the plan B, but
Yes.
they still need defensive help. I think it could be Oliver.
Could be, because they haven't had a guy like Easley back there. But the point you make, they lost their starting center Blair Bush in the free agent pick, and so Brian Williams might be the guy.
Seattle Seahawks select on Indianapolis slot in the first round by reason of a previous trade. Andy Heck, tackle, Notre Dame.
Well, we thought it'd be one of those 2, Andy Heck or Brian Williams. Andy Heck is a Golden Domer from Notre Dame, who very interestingly was recruited and played tight end. Now, Jerry Faust had him and said Jerry could recruit. He had some guys lined up at the wrong place because Andy Heck played tackle last year. He's only played 1 year collegiate tackle, has Andy Heck. But for him to go as the 2nd offensive lineman in the draft tells you, and he is a guy that Mel talked about that's been moving up and up and up and up as long as the offseason when he moved up. First team All-American, and after only 1 year at tackle. So obviously he may not be polished and ready to go, but I will tell you one reason why Seattle picked him, and that he is one of the few coming out of college in his first year that can line up at left tackle. In other words, not only right tackle, but left tackle, play without the tight end and still handle the defensive ends. I know the Seattle scouts were looking at him that way, and it takes something special to line up at left tackle rookie year, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Just stepping in and being able to play is not a given in the National Football League. I mean, you have to be able to go out, and as you look at their depth charts, you see where Mike Wilson's in his 12th year, which is on the right side, and that's very important. That's the position that Heck was naturally playing this past year.
Here comes New England's pick next, 16th, and I got to believe it's the wide receiver of their choice, either Ryson or Hartley Dykes. And if I had to guess, I would say it's the big guy, Hartley Dykes from Oklahoma State. They have the shorter burner in Stanley Morgan, who's still got a couple years left with them. New England is not taking long as they have the next choice here. And then we'll have Phoenix 2nd pick. So they're checking the pronouncers. New England with the 16th overall pick. And we're going like wildfire here as this is, my goodness, an hour and a half. This is the 16th choice.
New England's choice in the first round, Hartley Dykes, wide receiver, Oklahoma.
Well, if you stick around long enough, you occasionally get one right. Hartley Dykes, the big, tall receiver from Oklahoma State, who now joins Barry Sanders, his college teammate, as guys chosen in the first round. 6'3½", 220 pounds, runs a 4.6 from Bay City, Texas. Consensus first-team All-American. Has 2,400 yards in career receiving yards. Drafted by the White Sox last spring as a pitcher. I don't think he's the baseball player that Deion Sanders or Bo Jackson is. But Hartley Dykes, now the tall receiver that could go up and get him in Foxborough opposite Stanley Morgan. And New England just can't believe their fortune to have a wide receiver left And they have all those veteran quarterbacks. Hartley can catch from any one of them.
Well, opposite Stanley Morgan, and obviously Stanley getting up in age now, so this guy one day will probably be the replacement for Stanley Morgan. The surprising thing about Hartley is the fact that he is so big and rangy, but he has the quicks of a much, much smaller receiver. He's going to do a lot of damage in New England.
He caught a guy who may go in the first round, Eric Coleman of Wyoming. He caught 11 passes on him in the Holiday Bowl last year. To say what kind of receiver Hartley Dykes is, this is a good value for the number 16 pick, Joe.
Well, it's a good value. Also, you got to take into consideration, here's a young man who has had pretty much the run of the mill. The guy's pretty much had it the way he wanted at Oklahoma State. He's had a lot of freedom, practiced when he sort of felt good, had, you know, just things his way. For him to go to a big city, I think would have been terrible. To go to New England, where they're out away from the high rise, like a Deion Sanders would be, it's going to be good for him as a person, which I think is going to help him contribute as a football player.
Yeah, New England again, getting a good pick with Hartley Dykes. And after the surprise of the Jets, we've now gotten back to normalcy, Mel and Bobby, with Heck and Hartley Dykes, guys who you would expect to go at about the middle of the first round.
Right, and of course Dykes wouldn't be needing a new car. He's well equipped in that area. His recruitment put Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Illinois, and Texas on NCAA probation. That could be a draft record. He was that good in college, so you can see what he can do for the Patriots when the money's coming on top of the table. Trends, we had our first wide receiver go at the 16 spot. We had 6 wide receivers go in the first round last year. We had 3 running backs go in the top 22 last year. They went quickly this year as we've just recapped the first round. Heck, you've talked all weekend about him zooming up the charts. And indeed, he did all the way up to 16 or 15, actually, because I think as you were sitting down a month ago looking at the offensive line, he was maybe your 11th or 12th best offensive lineman 2 months ago.
Well, he started out the year, Bob, as probably a 5th, 6th rounder. He moved from tight end to offensive tackle this year. Really struggled early in the year, did not play well at all. The last 5 or 6 games, he's showed tremendous improvement. He's up now to 288 pounds on a 6'6 frame. There's no question that Andy Heck has moved up more than anybody in the last month in this draft. And I thought he would go in the middle of the first, and that's where he went. What ought to happen now is Dick Steinberg ought to send a personal note of thanks to Mike Hickey, Joe Walton, and the Jets for allowing a great player like Hartley Dykes to still be there with the 17th pick in the first round.
You know pro organizations. You look at what the Jets did today. Does this selection just point up that the Jets, who have not had a general manager for several years, need a general manager or a football man really at the presidential level in that organization?
I just don't think the Jets understand the draft. You have to get value when you make a selection. If you're picking 14th, you have to get a player that on your board is 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the way it always works with most teams in the league. And I can't see Jeff Lageman as any more than an early to mid second round choice. So if you're going to take Lageman, you move down. And I really believe that Dykes should have been that choice.
Let's go to the podium
Pittsburgh
quickly.
and Minnesota have now confirmed that the terms of the trade are finalized. Minnesota has traded its first round selection in the draft, which is the 24th spot in the first round, to Pittsburgh for veteran linebacker Mike Merriweather.
We had passed that news on before, so indeed the number 24 selection in this first round belongs to Pittsburgh. Phoenix is up. That's part of the Kelly Stouffer trade. Hartley Dykes, the selection, Bino Cook of the New England Patriots, and there are some Pats fans that have made the trek down here to New York City.
Okay, now we have a lot of New England fans here. One from Maine, and I will say they're not the wide receivers. But first, what did you think of picking Dykes?
I thought it was an excellent pick. I thought Andre Rison might be just a tad better, but you can't second-guess Dick Steinberg. The guy's a genius. He does it every year. Dykes is going to be all-world for the Pats, and we're going to go all the way to the top.
Okay, what did you...
Hello to Livermore Falls.
Okay, what did you think? A lot of booing up here. What did you think of the pick by the Jets? Did you laugh?
Oh, it's a second year, disappointing second year involving this draft for the Jets. Very disappointing.
Thank you, Jets. Thank you for helping the cause.
Okay, now back to you, Bob Lee.
Everybody's got an opinion on draft day. They are players that you might say are slipping. Maybe you would have thought at this point Louis Oliver would have been traded. The phenomenon of the plummeting pick. Also, Andre Rison, Michigan State. Let's check in now, as we now have about 9.5 minutes left to go for the Phoenix selection to be followed by the Jets. Kevin Kiley with the Rams in Anaheim. Kevin.
All right, Bob, thanks a lot. Andy Heck, I think, from Notre Dame is a player that moved up because he's versatile. He went to Woodson High School in Northern Virginia. I watched him play while he was in high school. Played some defense, played tight end at Notre Dame, and can play both tackles, the right and left. And Mel was talking about him moving up. He's a kid that really works hard, hit the weights, 288 pounds now, and I think that's the reason he's so high in the draft. Another guy that surprised me, along with everybody else, is Hartley Dykes, the fact that he didn't go to the Jets. Now, there's a guy that I always felt was a top wide receiver in the country. Watched him play for Oklahoma State. A very, very fine player, and good to see him go to New England, but a surprise he didn't go to the Jets. We'll be back with more of the 1989 draft in a moment.
And we are back live in New York with the Phoenix Cardinals' second first-round pick coming up next. And they have some minutes left before they make their selection. We are fortunate enough to have with us the #1 pick of all the draft, the Dallas Cowboys, Troy Aikman, quarterback superior, if you will, from UCLA. And I guess, Troy, you've had an interesting relationship with Jimmy Johnson. I mean, he tried to recruit you once to Oklahoma State. I guess when you're playing for Oklahoma, he was at Miami. That's what one, you suffered your broken leg, and now third time is a charm for him. I mean, were you trying to dodge this guy or what?
Well, I've had some talks with him, and he recruited me when I was at Henrietta High School when I came out of Oklahoma State, like you mentioned, and I guess I have him to thank for breaking my ankle and turning my career around and forcing me to transfer to UCLA.
Troy, when you get into uniform, the season gets ready to start. There's going to be a lot of speculation on whether you should start or not. Do you want to start beginning of the season?
Well, I think that's a difficult question for me to answer right now. Certainly, I don't know at this time what's going to be asked of me, how quickly I'm going to be able to get in and learn the system. And until I do, there's really no timetable. But I'd certainly like to get in there when I feel like I'm ready to go, and hopefully it'll be sometime this year.
Troy, let me, and Joe and Tommy, let me jump in for a second because the Cardinals are about to make their selection. Then we'll go back to talk with the newest quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Troy Aikman. Here's Phoenix's second first round.
Phoenix Cardinals select in the first round. Joe Wolf, guard, Boston College.
All right, so the Cards, first one, Eric Hill, linebacker, LSU. Now they go with Joe Wolf, guard, Boston College. The Giants are up next, but Joe, why don't you quarterbacks take it for a while?
Yeah, well, as far as pressure goes, does this relieve pressure off of you knowing that everything is settled, or has it been that way for a while? And if that is the case, how do you feel like you're going to be able to handle that pressure going in? You know, you're walking in where everybody's expecting you. First, they look at, as professionals, they look at the amount of money you're making. Then they say, okay, let's see what the value looks like. Does it put additional pressure on you?
Well, I think in terms of pressure, if this relieved any, I think it relieves some of the pressure just from knowing for sure where I'm going, getting this behind me. I think I'm just now beginning to walk into a situation where there's going to be added pressure to perform now on the football field, and that's inevitable. That's going to happen, as you well know, as a quarterback, no matter where you go, whether you were the first player chosen or the 16th, there's going to be pressure for you to perform, and all I can do is my best, and I'm going to go out there and do the best job I can and try to please myself as well as my teammates. And I certainly don't want to get in a situation where I'm trying to please everybody, fans and media, because you'll drive yourself crazy trying to do that.
Well, you've got a guy, I think you're one of the young quarterbacks that's coming into a situation with an opportunity a lot of people don't have. You get to turn around and hand the ball to number 34, Herschel Walker. Have you thought about what that's going to look like, or have you had a chance to work out with him at all?
I haven't had a chance to meet Herschel or talk to him, but I grew up watching Herschel at Georgia, and it's going to be a great experience for me. I think with a running back like Herschel Walker, it'll help make that transition for me a lot easier. He's a great player, and with receivers that they have at Dallas, certainly there's some great talent on that team, and that'll certainly help the burden.
Troy, our best wishes to you. First pick in the draft. I mean, that's something you probably thought about maybe a couple of years and tried to get out of your mind and say, my goodness, it's pretty lofty status. You've earned that status, and we look to see you in the Cowboy colors for a long time. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, Troy Aikman, quarterback, UCLA. First pick, already signed, sealed, delivered to the Dallas Cowboys. When we come back, the Giants will be up next. Stay with us. ESPN's coverage of the 1989 NFL Draft is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world. By the Hartford, the insurance people of ITT. When you need us most, we're at our best. And by Apple Computer,
giving you the power to be your best.
The New York Giants have the next selection, about 10 minutes to go to their selection. And guys like Andre Rison and Louis Oliver, guys who are projected to go a little bit higher in this draft, are still sitting around. However, the Giants have young wide receivers. They have young safeties, and so maybe they go offensive line, as the Phoenix Cardinals just did with their second first-round pick. Boston College guard Joe Wolf, and I think it's safe to say when you get a player from BC, just like Penn State or Pitt, you pretty much know what you're going to be getting. A no-nonsense guy, 6'5½", 280. Joe Wolf has played every position on the offensive line. With since you're going to the Giants, you might have to do some of that. If rather to Phoenix, he might have to move around on their line. He could be the best lineman ever at BC, some people say, which is a heck of a moniker to carry around. The youngster from Allentown, Pennsylvania, goes to the Phoenix Cardinals. And so the Cardinals, in Eric Hill and Joe Wolf, didn't pull any surprises today. Let's go to the podium because the Giants are next. And if they're looking linemen, it would be Brian Williams or Wisniewski from Penn State. Of course, they went to offensive linemen with the first picks last.
New York Giants, first-round selection. Brian Williams, guard, Minnesota.
Also, the Giants,
next up,
who went Eric Moore and John Elliott, offensive linemen 1 and 2 last year, and now gone with Brian Williams, who's a 300-pound guy that can play tackle, guard, or center. He's just a great athlete for Minnesota. 6'4", 300 pounds. Is a good deep snapper. He's a solid pass protector. The young man from Pittsburgh. You know, the Giants lose Billy Ard to Green Bay in the not the dispersal, but the free agent draft. Carl Nelson may not be able to play for him anymore. This seems like a good pick for the Giants, who've had some offensive line problems, if you listen to Parcells.
I think it's an excellent pick for the Giants. And the thing that you like about this kid is, as you said, I mean, you know, you get a good 300-pound offensive lineman. It's a guy who's going to be there for the next 12, 14, 15 years.
They are counting on that. A guy who has been with us almost that long on draft day, the inimitable one from Sports Illustrated. And usually I reserve that, Paul Zimmerman, for Tom Meese, so I don't know if you're sharing that.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either, but we're going to look it up. I brought my thesaurus in the back. Your thoughts on the first round lasted a couple hours. The Jets pulled a huge surprise, didn't they?
Well, there are two big surprises. Number one, Lageman gone. Number two, Andre Rison still hanging out there. I looked up Lageman in the meantime, and you know, I expected to see some numbers in the workouts that just jumped off the board and popped everybody's eyes open. But the guy, he ran 21st best of the 40 guys tested. Granted, he's big, but they drafted a big guy, Alex Gordon, a couple of years ago, and he didn't do anything. So it's a mystifying thing unless there's some sabotage afoot there.
What picks jump at you that you really love? I mean, at the top 5 and 6, we kind of knew. I guess New England got great value a couple moments ago with Dykes.
Well, the top 8 or 9 were chalk. Miami surprised people by taking Sammy Smith. I think that's a great pick for them. I think they can get a defensive player, a good defensive player in the second round. There was no real game-breaking defensive guy available, so they took the offensive guy, and I think that's great. And I think their offense will really be dynamic, and they'll luck in maybe to a defensive guy in the second round. But I sort of like that, going for the quality.
Z, what about the almost situation that we had with Jim McMahon almost becoming a member of the Chargers?
It would have been madness for the Chargers to trade for him. I think Joe called it before. I mean, you're getting a guy that might give you 5 games.
I mean, you say Sammy Smith is a kind of a gamble, but you like that pick for Miami. The Bears, you pretty much knew would go Wolford. And Trace Armstrong, he's kind of a Dan Hampton clone in his work habits, right?
Well, one thing about the Bears picks, they're always safe. You always get big-name guys from big-name schools that aren't going to hurt you. Maybe they take a little while to develop, but you can almost chart the way they pick. You know, they don't get the guys from these way-out type schools.
Do you get in a situation, Z, where there are some athletes left on the board right now that I think the later teams never really expected? You mentioned Oliver. We've talked about Andre Rison. Does this change the situation for somebody like New Orleans, who really didn't think they had a shot at maybe a DB where they need some help?
Well, New Orleans figured offensive line, defensive line. They figured they get some nice big plow horse type of guy, and here's Andre Rison jumping at him. They don't really need receivers that much, but how do you pass them up? But of course, I could have been asking that for the last 5 picks.
They certainly could use some speed receivers, and that might be the case with Rice, and we shall see. New Orleans is up next, and we'll continue with Dr. Z and the rest of the festivities in New York and points beyond as our live coverage of the draft continues in a moment.
Third Base Sports and Trophies is the winning team for your sporting goods and award presentation needs. We specialize in team uniforms, jackets, custom embroidery, and engraving with a wide variety of plaques and trophies to choose from. But what you'll really like about Third Base is the fast, same-day service because all the work is done on premises. You're safe at Third Base Sports and Trophies, Route 38 and Hollywood Avenue, just west of the Cherry Hill Mall. Fax orders welcome. Call for a free catalog.
Right now, you could be watching your commercial, your business advertised on television with NYT Cable. Be among the top advertisers who recognize the power of being seen on television. Cable television. It's visual. It's enticing. It reaches your customers. And it's affordable. Be a part of the fun and call for more information. You'll get the benefits of being seen on television at a price you can afford. Call NYT. It's the place to be.
Thinking about that, I've been thinking about what it will be like to go to the Super Bowl next year and watch it on television. What will it be like when the season opens and we won't be going to a game?
Back here at the balcony with all the real fans following the draft. We got two Jet fans. You could say the most controversial choice in 1988 was the choice of Senator Quayle for vice president for the Republican Party. But that is mild as far as the Jet fans are concerned. The pick first round, a linebacker from Virginia. Doug and Tim, are you upset about the Jets picking, in your opinion, although I don't know what any of us know, the pick they did in the first round?
You know, I looked through Sports Illustrated, Sport Magazine, ESPN, Associated Press. Nobody had him in the first round. He's listed as the seventh. The NFL Combine says he's the seventh ranked. This guy is nobody, and I don't know why they didn't trade him away if they wanted him.
How do you feel, Tim?
When you have talent like Andre Rison and, you know, Louis Oliver still available, I mean, why not take them? I mean, the Jets need someone that will make them a team of the future. This guy does not seem like a person that will help them in the future.
Have you been happy with the Jet picks in the last few years?
No, I haven't. I've been coming since '65 when my father got tickets. I was 4 years old. I've had season tickets since. And it's annoying because Joe Walton shouldn't be the coach. We need a real football man. All right, but we need a real football man as a general manager anyway. And I'm sure you wouldn't argue that when you're talking football, you have to have a football man running the team. And the Jets don't have that now. And that's why they come up with picks like this. And I just want to say hello to Section 208 and my brother Dave.
Okay, well, we have that. First, it now looks like the Steelers are going to get Andre Rison, which will make them the winners in the first round. Back to Bob Lee.
He's hanging out there. Whether he goes that far down remains to be seen. We have had 18 selections, 8 defensively, 10 offensively, as Jeff Lageman, good ball player, not projected anywhere near where he was selected and taken by the Jets, the 14th pick, the first Virginia draftee by the Jets since they took Lester Lyles back in 1985. There's some big names out there. Okay, Louis Oliver has plummeted. Andre Rison, not nearly as much, but Oliver had been talked about as one of the 7 samurai at the top of this draft a couple of weeks ago.
He's a fine football player. When you look at Oliver, he should be in this general area.
But why is he plummeting?
Now. Well, people look at pure safeties and they downgrade them. They'll take the cornerback over the pure safety. What teams did to allow Rison to slide down this far is go strictly for their major needs. Teams took Joe Wolf. Teams took Brian Williams. Clubs like this. And, of course, the Jets threw the whole first round out of kilter with the Lageman pick. But Andre Rison is an outstanding football player. If you even look back into history, when Jerry Rice came out, he went in the mid-first round. You had that year Toon, Brown, and Rice. None of those 3 went before the 10th pick in the first round. So wide receivers tend to slide, but it's allowing the Saints, it's allowing the Broncos and clubs like this to get a real steal at this point in the draft.
Okay, we're waiting to see what happens with the Saints, a team that lost 8 veteran free agents to the Type B free agency. We really have yet to delve into that. We will through the afternoon. The effect that some of these selections in the later rounds will have Type Bs. New Orleans is up with about 6.5 minutes to go before their selection. We talk about the fortunes of players rising and falling, and then there are players who just want to get, as we watch the Saints, want to get into that first round. It's prestige and it is money. One such player is a cornerback from North Carolina Central, Robert Massey, maybe on the bubble as it comes to being projected as a first rounder. And with him, spending this draft Sunday with him, is our Jimmy Roberts. In Durham,